Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. On the back of that healthy debate, I'm going to switch to perhaps part of the debate that wasn't delved into very deeply, which is notwithstanding all of the excitement around the demand for copper, around electrification and new technology, energy security, the issue that our industry is going to face is supply. The issue in the copper business is trying to replace the copper that's being mined. And while I take you through Panoro Minerals, we're a copper exploration company. Our main project is Cotabambas. It's a large-scale project in the south of Peru where we're working on the pre-feasibility study. In addition to some of the technical promotional information that I'm going to give you about the company, I think that we serve as a good example of how long it takes to bring new copper to the market. We've been working on our Cotabambas project for 12 years. 12 years ago, the project had a few drill holes, no resource. And in that 12 years, we've invested some $50 million. We've carried out over 100,000 meters of drilling and have defined over 1 billion tons of resource and a valuation, a project valuation of over $1 billion. We have arranged future funding for the project through to development and operation of over $650 million. We have brought in key strategic partners such as Wheaton Precious Metals on a streaming deal on the gold and silver byproduct. We have brought in two key strategic shareholders, Hudbay Minerals of Canada and Antofagasta Minerals of Chile. And that has been over 12 years. And the project, if all goes well from now forward, probably won't be operating for another 5 years. So it will have been 2 decades of work to build a mine that will produce 100,000 tons a year of copper out of the 25 million tons a year that is produced. And on the back of the earlier discussion, I'd like to emphasize the roadmap forward for copper because of all the different ideas that were discussed earlier. The roadmap forward is more than what I've read recently. Are we entering a new bull market for copper? Are we entering a new super cycle for commodities? I would argue, and I think it's very becoming ever more clear, that what we're entering really is a new era for copper. 100 years ago, we entered the era of hydrocarbons, and the oil and gas business played a role in industrialization and urbanization, primarily in the West, for over 100 years. Now the new areas of industrial expansion, of urbanization, of new technologies is China, India to come, Southeast Asia, the Middle East. And in many of those areas, the environmental drivers for adoption of electrification and therefore copper use is very important. But I would argue that equally or more important in most of those jurisdictions is energy security. And energy security should be the driver for the electrification movement and therefore the rapid increase in the use of copper. In this scenario, Peru will continue to play a role, at least for some time, that it has played for the last 3 decades. Peru has doubled its copper production over the last decade and a half and has become the world's second largest copper producer. In addition, it's also the world's second largest silver producer, the world's second largest zinc producer, a major producer of gold, of lead, of tin. Peru is really a mining powerhouse. And if you look at a company like ours, 12 years of work at the Cotabambas project, $50 million invested. However, the sad part of our business is that we don't yet see the valuation increase in companies like ours, partly, let's say, driven by the phenomena that was being discussed earlier, is that we have failed to attract the enthusiasm of the nouveau investor. Obviously, there's work to be done there. Let's look at a map of the south of Peru. In the south of Peru, you can see the companies that have built mines there. They're Chinese companies, Japanese companies, English companies. Swiss companies, Canadian companies, UK companies, American companies, the whole world, large mining interests from around the world have been developing large copper assets in the south of Peru. If you would have looked at this map 12 years ago, 15 years ago, you would have found 5 early stage copper exploration projects that were being advanced by junior mining companies. All of those were acquired and are either being built or already been built and are operating. And now, a decade and a half later, instead of having 5 projects in the south of Peru, there's only 1. So we have not, in our industry, been able to successfully discover new deposits. I think if you combine that with the global shift in economic focus, I think the future is that we as an industry need to go and explore in areas that we have not traditionally explored. And the demand is in a certain part of the world, the economic growth is in a certain part of the world, and the future for our exploration needs to shift away from areas that are very highly developed already as far as mining goes. So the Cotabambas project, we commenced our in 2022 the pre-feasibility study that we have managed to fund without raising any money, without issuing any stock. We had a large portfolio of projects. We have partnered, sold, JV'd those earlier stage projects in order to raise the money to fund the Cotabambas project. And we expect that early next year we'll have a pre-feasibility study completed. Peru, we have been very successful in managing the ESG component of our business by thinking local. Like they say about politics, all permitting, all community relations are local issues. And we have 7, 8 different environmental permits that we have expanded, grown, diversified over the last decade. We have been working with our 2 local communities for over a decade and a half without a delay, without issues on the project. 2 communities have to be relocated. We convened a commission on the part of both of the communities, and we helped organize a search for future relocation sites for the community. They identified the location sites. We bought the land, transferred the land. We only hire locally. We spend some 6 to 10% of our budget on local community efforts. So on the ESG side, our experience in Peru has been to think local, act local, understand the local populations, and devise your strategies accordingly. At the Cotabambas project, 722 million tons is the current resource divided between 2 pits. The challenging and interesting part about our work is trying to figure out what's in the ground and figure out the geology through little diamond drill holes of small diameter. We have a 17,000 meter drill program underway. It's about half complete right now. We've had some very good results. The good results are indicating to us the 5 principal areas of expansion of the project from the drilling that we're doing. We expect to upgrade the classification of the resource from inferred up to indicated, but we also expect to grow the resource. And more importantly, we expect to grow the high grade component of the resource, which will disproportionately increase the value of the project. Currently 722 million tons. We expect that we will end up with a plus 1 billion ton resource as we complete our drilling program. The South Pit has a very high grade zone. High grade meaning above 0.9% copper equivalent. We have intersects of between 100 and 200 meters at between 1 and 2% copper. So we're finding this high grade zone, and that's the key focus for our ongoing exploration work. Also, between the north and the south pit, there's a gap where previous drilling did not intercept any mineralization. Further geologic mapping of the fault structures there have indicated that this gap area has been downthrust, and there's approximately 100 to 150 meters of downdrop. And so we're going to put some more drilling in that gap area, and we expect that we'll be able to identify continuity of the mineralization between the north pit and the south pit. So the horizon for potential plus 1 billion ton resource is looking promising for us. Just a few examples of our recent drill results. We've been announcing drill results as they've been as the assays have been coming in, and you can see there are a number of intercepts of 1 to 200 meters at 1 to 2% copper. As a benchmark reference, our life of mine average grade over the 17 years will be 0.5%. So what we're intersecting are zones that are double to quadruple the grade of our life of mine average. So drilling is underway. There's a number of metallurgical opportunities that are being engineered, including improved recoveries in the flotation plant, some optimization work to increase the recoveries of precious metals while at the same time reducing the amount of grinding that's required. That should improve the operating costs as well. And some ore sorting technologies in order to better select portions of what would be higher grade zones within our current mine plan. I think just referencing back to the previous discussion, it is interesting to see that there are a number of interesting technological developments going on in the mining sector that should attract the attention of bright young engineers. I was thinking as I was listening to the conversation, the previous discussion, my personal experience is my son is 19 years old. He's studying chemical and electrical engineering precisely for this reason, that the battery area is going to be the area of a very of interesting development and opportunities. And I was counting that I have, I think, within my circle of friends and family, 8 recent engineering graduates, and 7 of them are working in the mining sector. So there are some very interesting opportunities in the mining sector. I live in Vancouver, Canada, which is a very mining-centric city. And I think perhaps our younger generation there is probably a little bit more in tune with what the opportunities and the interesting opportunities in the mining sector are as compared to other areas, let's say, here in the UK. So the Cotabambas project, as I've tried to summarize very quickly, is a large project. It's 10 years of work to identify $1 billion of potential valuation. We are a company that trades at a very modest $40 million market cap. We have all of our feasibility and pre-feasibility studies funded, and work is underway. We've been working in Peru for actually, myself and 2 colleagues, we established the company 2.5 decades ago. And it's an interesting example of how long it takes. When we started the business, we didn't really have a long-term plan. We thought, let's find something. But it's an interesting example of a project that's taken a decade to get where it is right now, has 4 or 5 years ahead of it, and where the work that we've done has already identified about a $700 million value, but with a 6 to 7-fold valuation increase with the work that's going on. And our hope is that more of the market will come to appreciate the scarcity of our types of projects. As I said, in the south of Peru, a decade and a half ago, there was 5 of these projects. Now there's only 1. And if you look at similar jurisdictions or other mining jurisdictions around the world, I think you'll find a similar story. So companies like ours were working hard through a very difficult decade of mining exploration, a very difficult decade of raising money, working very hard to fill the supply side of the copper issue in order to make the green economy real. And making the green economy real, as we're finding, takes a long time and a lot of money. So that's Panoro Minerals. Thank you very much.